Imagine you're backstage with the Rolling Stones or at soundcheck with Willie Nelson. You're watching Missy Elliott absolutely entrance a crowd of thousands of people from the side stage. Or you're just feet away from Dolly Parton as she has a memorable career moment. For almost any music lover, having access to some of the most iconic musicians is just a fantasy. But for today's guest, Josh Timmermans, it's his job. Josh is a professional music and entertainment photographer, as well as media content manager and consultant through his business, Noble Visions. I've been following his work for almost a decade, as he is the photographer for my favorite band, Widespread Panic. Josh has this very rare gift of translating the electricity and raw emotion of live music through his photography, pulling you right into that moment. Josh has built a career photographing musical legends while navigating the creative challenges that we all face. How do you access creative flow? How do you turn your art into sustainable business? How do you get out of your own way? In this episode, Josh opens up about his journey from corporate advertising to his dream career in live music, sharing hard-won wisdom about creative risk, emotional intelligence, and building a life that feeds your spirit. This is The Artist Rendezvous, a podcast celebrating the creative act. My name is Samantha Fotenhauer. I'm your host. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Josh, welcome to the Artist Rendezvous.
Thanks, Sam. I'm really honored and privileged to be here. I'm glad to be sitting down with you and talk about everything art and creativity here.
Great. So to give people an idea of what we mean in your business, being a photographer of musicians, tell us a little bit about your week, of where you've been and who you've been working with and who you're about to go work with.
Yeah, this is the busy time of year. So it's one of those things where you kind of jump in the car and say, hold on, put your seatbelt on and let's go for a ride. I started off the month with one of Noble Vision's creative partners, Mempho Presents. We do I think 4 different events right now is what's in our portfolio. So our biggest event was Riverbeat Music Festival, which was on the Mississippi River with big time headliners, Missy Elliott, Cage the Elephant, just a long list of A-name performers and artists. And that was a very special event because it was, I'm the director of photography there, but I'm also the digital asset manager there. So it was a big test for our company and Noble Visions to be able to kind of manage all the assets that are coming in across a big festival like that and make sure they're getting to where they need to go. And then after that, we followed up a week later with our barbecue music festival, which is called Smoke Slam. And that was never done a barbecue festival, so it was an interesting learning experience, but we had a lot of entertainers. Good friends, the Revivalists were one of the performers, Big and Rich. But that specific event was a challenge for me as well because I had to come in and direct the creative team, make sure everything was running properly, and then pick up and leave and go and join Widespread Panic on the road in Charleston, South Carolina for a run of shows there. That just ended this past weekend, was great success. Both events, Smoke Slam and the Widespread shows, were pulled off seamlessly. Everybody seemed to be very happy. And now I'm in between here in Austin for a very short amount of time, sitting down with you, and then head off to go meet up with Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan on the Outlaw Tour. And they're joined with Billy Strings, Lily Miola, I think, and Sierra Farrell, I think, is the other artist on this leg. And the Outlaw Tour is a 6-leg 10th anniversary tour, so it's going to be a busy summer, and I'm on and off tour with them, I think, for 5 of the 6 legs. So it's the start of a busy summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So just again, for some context, where could have people maybe seen your work and not know? What publications do you?
It's over the past 10 years, you could see anything from, I did work with the Travel Channel. I did work with the Indy Racing League, the Men and Women's Tennis Association. That's outside the music realm. Within the music realm, Rolling Stone, Spin Magazine, Billboard Magazine. a lot of the typical entertainment rags, like Us Weekly, People Magazine, that type of stuff. And then also you can see a lot of the work in publications and book publications and records. So you'll see stuff on, you can open up a record and see the inside of it. One we're working on right now is with Bootsy Collins, and we're working on Dolly Parton's book. Which
is so exciting. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much. It's that project itself that's a complete honor, but that project's ongoing right now and should come out in November, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so you've worked with a lot of musicians, but also a lot of talent, a lot of people doing cool things in the world. And I think there's a lot of people who will be listening to this, especially photographers, who would say, yeah, that would be amazing. I would love to be able to photograph one of my favorite musicians in these iconic moments and be a part of the entire experience of putting together an entire show or music experience. And so bring me back a little bit to when you were first starting and tell us a little bit about when you first realized, okay, there's something here and I want to go for it. This could be possible for me. If you ever had that question of whether it's possible for you.
Sure. Yeah. The whole process of figuring out that this is what I wanted to do in a life's work wasn't something that necessarily came overnight or was an aha moment. It was kind of a melting of where my life's path had brought me at that point. I really enjoyed photography as a young child. My Uncle Bud growing up, which was my grandmother's brother, so it was kind of a great uncle, always had a film camera in his hand. That's really where my first interest in captured moments were. The whole mechanical aspect, it was still film, it was tactile, it was, what you see, you got to put on a piece of paper and it was saved. I was just enamored by the whole aspect of photography. But it really wasn't something that entered the realm of possibilities as an outlet or even as something that you could pursue as a livelihood. That was far, far from the thought process. Growing up, I was encouraged to follow my creative side, but at the back of it, it was always find something that you're going to be able to make a career out of. The traditional, become a lawyer, become a doctor, follow, something that's a traditional role. And so photography didn't enter that wave of thinking in that respect. So I went to school for architecture and design, found out it was really too rigid and kind of backed out, and then went into environmental science. And then did some backpacking, being out in nature, and realized that environmental science wasn't fulfilling the creative side of me that needed fulfilled. So as I was doing a lot of backpacking and hiking, I noticed myself taking a lot of photos. Fast forward to when I started working for AT&T in the marketing and advertising department. Started doing a lot of advertising and marketing campaigns for businesses in Cincinnati. And part of those designs were including me coming out and doing photography work for them. So there's always this backbone of photography laid into what I was doing in the design and advertising field or the marketing campaigns. And then had the opportunity to be transferred to Hawaii to work for AT&T in the advertising and marketing industry. Moved to Hawaii and was doing great in terms of creating these great marketing and advertising campaigns, and parlayed my photography into that. Really use that as a key selling point for my marketing campaigns, where I could actually lend to these businesses and say, hey, listen, if you need photography, you can use my skills. You don't have to hire anybody else. That being said, AT&T provided the opportunity for continuing education. So I decided to go to the University of Hawaii and have AT&T pay for me to explore my photography bug.
Cool.
So that was kind of the okay, I can't make money doing this. Let's see if I can figure out a way for someone to pay me to explore it. So I used my resources and started taking classes at the University of Hawaii. Once I did that and really started opening up kind of that creative outlet, and just, it was really an outlet because I was working in advertising, and it was, making 6 figures living in Hawaii, and it was the rat race, it was at that point that photography was an outlet. I would go out to these landscapes and just photograph, lose myself in the woods, or go out to the beach and stay on the beach for hours and just photograph what I saw. And it was all pure emotion and pure energy and taking in what I was seeing. And it helped me, that actually helped me on the path of starting to be more present, so to speak. Because nature photography, you have to be in the moment. I mean, you have to wait for the right moments. You can't force it with your own lighting or artificial lighting. You have to really be present. But I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know that that's really what I was being drawn to, was being in the present moment. So as I was in Hawaii, I knew I was going to be moving back to the mainland, and started doing design work for bands, poster work, just following my love for music, and just, I already had friends that were musicians. I had dabbled in the industry a little bit. So to kind of keep my creative spark going, I started just doing design work for these bands. And when I moved back to the mainland in Cincinnati, I left AT&T and said, okay, I'm going to take my photography and design and create. At the time in Cincinnati, it was called Noble Visions Design and Photography. And it was heavily leaning on the design side of things. It was really, how can we figure out a marketing campaign for these small businesses, or marketing campaigns for bands? Let's do the photography. Let's do their posters. Let's do their entire marketing for tours. That's really where the crossroads started to happen. I was still, out photographing, being hired by a metal company and photographing 5 million bolts and nuts and screws, and like paying the bills with photography, but still doing, I started doing like horse races because we're so near. I was in Cincinnati. I was near all the horses down in Kentucky. So I found myself like at finish lines of horse races. And I was just really getting into like, okay, well, how can photography come into play now?
So let's pause here. You had this corporate job, and you were both exploring photography as a creative exploration, bringing you into presence, into nature, but also you're bringing it into your work, and you were really developing your skill set in a more professional setting. Tell me about this decision to step away from the corporate work and go off on your own.
Yeah, that was stepping off the corporate hamster wheel, so to speak, was a risk that I had to jump into the fear itself. But I also come from a long line of entrepreneurs in my family, and people that, I don't know if they were necessarily stubborn, but they wanted to do things their own way, or they had a vision for their own way. So I knew that was in the back of my mind that I wanted to do this. It was a challenge at the time that I was wanting to pursue, because I thought that the corporate environment and what I was chasing there was someone else's dream. And I was excelling at someone else's goals. I was meeting and exceeding all of my benchmarks and going on these lavish, trips, and you sold so much, and it was great. The money was there. I lived a great lifestyle. I could do whatever I wanted, but it just wasn't fulfilling. It just didn't have that. You would be fulfilled at the end of a campaign, but it wouldn't be a personal fulfillment.
How did you know you weren't fulfilled? Were there, for anyone who might be out here and be like, I think it's time for me to explore something else, what does it start to look like when it's time to start thinking elsewhere?
You can't judge it by success or no success, because if you're doing well for another company and you're having success, that's what your goal is. You want to be successful. So you have to distinguish between the illusion of success and the reality of progress in your own personal life in terms of financial, career, or creativity. Because at a certain point, you're making someone else money. I mean, we all have to make a living. And if you're working for someone else, you're contributing to their dream. Now, you might share in their dream and support their dream and be willing to sacrifice your time for their dream and get satisfaction from achieving those goals that they want from you. But at the end of the day, does that make who you are as a person become a better person? Or are you just satisfying your own ego to say, you know what, I did it? And a lot of times it's satisfying that ego saying, you know what, look at all these awards I got from my boss or this company, and look at all these trips I went on, and look at all this money I have, and look at this house that I have, and look at this car that I have. And then you lay down in bed and you're like, something's missing. And that's when you have to figure it out. And a lot of times what's missing is just being authentic to yourself. And if you're authentic to yourself, creativity flows.
I'm having this lyric come into my head from a band I love that Josh works with. Spiritual hunger, spiritual thirst. You have to feed yourself on the inside first. And that's, to me, what this is speaking to. It's like, if you can have a lot of external success, which is important, and that can be internally satisfying. But if you're not feeding what your individual version of success and satisfaction and fulfillment, and you're not feeding that spirit, and for, I think, probably most people listening to this episode, creativity is part of that equation. But for me, it's autonomy and freedom are huge parts of that, and expression and service. Those are kind of pillars for my version of success. They're going to be different for other people's. Then no matter what other external success it won't ever satisfy me, truly. And then you get that emptiness. And I think that's a big reason why people jump like you did. I think it's like, okay, I've shown myself I can do it. I'm ready in this category, but can I have more? Yeah,
you're 100% correct. It's the challenge is you speak of, can I have more? People don't know what the more is because they think the more is already something they've attained. It's like, this is the more that everybody told me I was supposed to go for. This is what everybody in society says this is what it is. And it's, at the end of the day, it's not. It's being true to who you are as a human and letting that creative aspect flow. And man, I truly believe everybody has something they're creative at. There are a lot of people that use that as a shortcut in life and say, well, I'm not creative at anything. What's that saying to me is you've not fully let the blocks go for you to be able to find out where the creativity lies. And that's a big, when you have the ability to understand that, not only understand it, but then allow yourself to figure out how to let those blocks go, that's when it starts to really shine.
What were some of your blocks?
I'm still getting rid of some of them.
Yeah, what are they?
You know, there's a lot, you know, like childhood trauma blocks, you know, there's art classes where I was told that I wasn't good at something in art, and then my buddy sitting next to me was, and I think that his art sucks. You know, it's like it's like you create those own blocks for you. So you have to go deep and figure out, okay, well, why aren't you drawing more? Well, you stopped drawing because of this fear at this one point. Well, what was that fear? Oh, it was this one lady in the charcoal class that didn't like the way you did charcoal. And that was the last expression you did with pencil. Let go of whoever that lady was, because her voice does not matter. And then once you truly let go of that block, then you're able to let that creativity come through again. But and I think we'll probably hit on this a little bit later. That's when emotional intelligence comes in.
Let's talk about it now.
Okay.
So something that you and I have in common is our passion and interest of emotional intelligence. And I'll I'll define it. Feel free to add to this definition. So I view emotional intelligence. I'll use Dr. Mark Brackett's definition ruler, which is the ability to recognize an emotion that you're having, understand its context, where it came from. So in this example, that was first planted by being criticized by a teacher. Label it. I am feeling disappointed, sad, angry. The average American only knows 3 emotions that they can identify in real time: happy, sad, and anger, according to a study Brene Brown did. So the ability to label, I'm feeling hurt, which is different than disappointed, which is different than anxious. REL, express, being able to communicate your emotion in an appropriate way, in a manner where it can be heard. And then regulate, being able to manage and regulate our emotions. And I add an S to this definition, somatics, or mind-body connection, which is being able to connect something we're feeling with a sensation in our body. So I know that when I feel anxious, that often feels like my throat's closing. And so sometimes I don't know that I'm feeling anxious, but my throat will start to close, or I'll feel this tightness, and that's a cue to me. There's something about this environment or something that I'm doing doesn't feel safe to me. So I need to pause and explore rather than ignore it and keep going. So when we're saying emotional intelligence, we're talking about the ability to know how we're feeling, manage our emotions, and express them so we can have better relationships, feel more creative fulfilled. I think one of the biggest one is actually engage with our lives and go after things that are important to us.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, your explanation of emotional intelligence, you knocked it out of the park. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And I can tell you from my early years of existence on this planet that me being in touch and aware of my emotions was the furthest thing from my overall awareness. I mean, it wasn't, you had highs and lows. You ride the roller coaster. It's like that you feel this way when your buddy says something and you just keep going. You know, it's not anything that was not necessarily needed to be paid attention to, because I don't think our emotions when we're young really affect our outward interactions, because everybody's so young at that time, nobody knows how to regulate their emotions. So as we grow older, some of us keep those same type of ways of interacting with people as they did in their childhood, and they don't know any better. And that's when relationships can start to get bad, and work situation can get bad, and people raise their voice, and people don't have that ability to regulate. And I think once you do start paying attention to the actual, you brought it up, your S at the end, the sensations that you have. When I first started paying attention and really assessing my emotional intelligence and what I'm feeling, when I actually started paying attention to the physical feelings that I was having in certain situations, it opened up a completely different world, because I realized that sensation of joy, or like that sensation when someone that you're looking forward to seeing walks in the room, or like you get those butterflies, that's created by your own mind. You can create that same exact feeling if your worst enemy's walking in the room. And the biggest thing is not listening to what your mind says when your mind wants to tell you that this is what your body's experiencing, because 9 times out of 10, your mind's wrong. You have to step back and be aware of, yes, your mind is going to respond to this situation this way, because that's the ingrained way that the mind reacts. Fight or flight. You're part of a herd. If you think fear's coming in, your mind's going to automatically respond a certain way. So I have found over the past 4 or 5 years during the creative process, or certain situations where I get flustered in a work environment such as the festival and I'm managing a ton of people, stepping back and looking at everything from 3 perspectives. From my perspective, the person I'm dealing with, and then a completely outside perspective, and use your emotional intelligence tools to analyze what's going on in all 3 positions. That has led me to get out of my own way and let my creativity shine, because now I'm not looking at everything from the artist's perspective I'm looking at it from an artist perspective as well as possibly my client. And then what is, the person that's going to perceive this art or perceive this project we're looking on, how are they going to look at it? And it's allowed me the ability to not be a perfectionist, but get more towards the level of excellence I demand for myself in terms of the creative outlet, because I know what I'm capable of. But if I let go of all of the emotional baggage I bring, that level is far beyond what my expectations are. So the second that I'm able to kind of hone those emotions in, and really either throw them to the side or use them to my benefit, that's when if I get out of my own way, then I produce results that it puts my jaw on the ground with my own art. It's like, I don't even remember taking that photo, and here it is, just like, blows me out of the water. And that's when, you enter the flow states, and it gets to that point where it's like, okay, my emotional intelligence has allowed me to kind of drop everything and then get into the moment and achieve flow. And then here's a photo that you forget that you even took because you were in that moment.
That's so cool. So let's go back like 5 years, 10 years before you had some of these tools. And could you give us one or two examples of how a lack of emotional intelligence or your emotions were getting in the way?
Sure. They came into play a lot in photography because I'm around a lot of high profile, big name artists that you have to develop trust with these artists to be able to capture behind the scenes, green room stuff. I mean, when they're in the privacy of their own space, you're being invited into areas where nobody's allowed in there, sometimes not even their own manager or even in their own family. And there are times when I have to take a risk and push the limits of what is comfortable because I want to get something unique. And there were times when that artist or someone would give me feedback that was harsh, off the tongue, like step the fuck back or something like that. And you can look at it two different ways. Am I going to take it personally? And then immediately it affects everything I'm producing for the next hour? Or am I objective about it? I look at it from a couple different perspectives and I say, okay, wait a minute, I was invading their personal space. It's not a cut personally on me. It's a professional request to maybe give some more room. Being able to use those context clues and base it off the emotional energy of the room is extremely important. Otherwise, I won't get the shot that I need. And that came into play. I mentioned Dolly Parton. That came into play when it was Dolly and Kenny Rogers. I mean, I was the photographer that photographed their last performance. And the day they engaged one another during the rehearsal day, everybody's around those two. I mean, it's Kenny and Dolly. So you've got the manager and the handlers and everybody's around. Everybody's making sure they're okay. And those two just wanted to embrace. And you could feel the energy closing in around them. And I physically took people's arms and reached out and pushed them away so I could get my photo because it was the moment that I wanted. It was her with her arm around Kenny from behind and her looking over. And I took that arm and I grabbed the photo. I think it was 2 or 3 snaps. And as soon as I did it, I got yelled at by Dolly's. I think it was her handler at the time. And I don't remember what the words were, but they were choice. And I let that moment go. I truly let it go because I knew that the power of the moment was going to rule over everything later on when I was able to look at that image. And I knew I wanted a black and white, and I knew the moment spoke for itself. And there were just so many things that were working at that moment that I had to take action. Had I taken that, sharp tongue from that gentleman to heart and let what I was feeling inside, like my blood pressure shot up. I felt, everything went up into my head. I could feel like the floor's dropping out, and it's like all these emotions are going on. And I, calm and collective, stepped back, went about my business, and continued to do the work, and proceeded to capture amazing stuff. And a lot of that stuff is what's going to appear in the book. But the ability and wherewithal to kind of understand what's happening and differentiate a professional situation as opposed to a personal situation and how to deal with it accordingly. It allows me to do what I'm doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asked to be back in those areas.
Oh, that's such a good example. Thank you for sharing that, because one, being able to hold that discomfort in your body and be like, it's scary to feel that. And it doesn't feel good and it's nerve-wracking. And also having the trust in your discernment of, I am here as the artist and the photographer tasked with capturing these moments. And it's one way to look at this is you are holding the boundary of that and being able to sense like, me pushing back the harm isn't putting anyone at risks, but we need to capture this moment. And I might need to be able to take this risk to do that. And then even if there's fallout, be able to put that to the side, or you get a choice word or whatever, so you can continue on with your day, which brings me to this question of creative flow. So you've mentioned this a few times. What is that?
Yeah, I think creative flow is different for everybody. I think the flow state is letting go of everything and letting your natural instincts come to play. You can't second guess anything. So therefore, if you can't second guess anything, you can't have your mind involved. Because once your mind gets involved, then it messes everything up, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
The mind's a really weird thing. I like to say the brain produces, let's see, the mind produces the snot of the brain. That's the way. And every now and then you got to blow it out.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you're in flow state, if you're even paying anywhere attention to the analytical part of your mind, is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? All that stuff, if you're good at what you do, should come naturally. You shouldn't have to sit there and, specifically in concert photography, it's not like I can set up studio lighting. Is this lighting good? Is this, you got time to think about that. Everything's happening on a fly. I mean, it changes in a split second, it can change. Therefore, for me to think about any of that stuff would be counterproductive. So entering that flow state, you always want to get to that flow state, but the second you start thinking about getting to that flow state, it goes as far away as possible. So it's this double-edged sword of like, okay, I want to get there. I can feel it tonight. I know I'm going to get there, but when is that going to happen? Drop that thought, because the second you drop that thought, that's when it starts happening. And that happened this past weekend.
Why is it so valuable to be in flow state? What's the result of flow state?
Your true creativity shines. I mean, it really is. You're willing to take fears that you wouldn't, or take risks that you wouldn't normally do because of fears that you might have built up in your head. You're willing to trust your inner being, so to speak. I mean, your natural. It's almost like your soul. You trust it. That flow state is you being in touch with that inner being. Your inner being is driving all of it. It's not something that I'm directing myself. It's not like I'm a little guy in my head. Just let's drive this flow state. It's the second I do that, it's like you're screwing it up, Josh. Get out of your head. And I've noticed that a lot. It's like the Sunset this past weekend during the shows. With Panic and Charleston were just super dynamic. I knew they were going to be dynamic all night, each night. As long as it wasn't raining, we were going to have it. That golden hour is ultimate flow state, because there's the dynamic happening all around you is happening so quickly, and it changes so rapidly, and your lens wants to capture the best angle possible given the lens that you have for the specific spot. So one image that I would capture in one spot with one lens is different than what I would capture at that same moment in a different spot of the stadium. So I have to make the proper decision of where to be with what lens to capture like the most excellent shot of that moment. Like what is going to be I can't think about that, because then you drop out of flow state. You have to trust yourself And that's what happened. I was like 5 or 6 different places all over that stadium and took sunset shots. And I knew when I took the one that was going to bang. I mean, I just knew it. And it hit. When it hit, I was like, I don't want to take any more sunset shots. And I'd taken so many different angles. And when it hit that one spot, it was like, you like drop out of this flow state. It's like you come out of this trance and you're like, well, that's going to be a really nice shot. And then I don't think about that moment anymore. So it's kind of like you give yourself to the creativity. Mm. It's almost as if, and you don't necessarily have to be good at it, but if you've been like, even if you're not good at a specific creative, like I believe you're taking on painting. Uh-huh. Painting's a new thing for you. Uh-huh. You're developing your skills. Yeah. And as you develop the skills, even if you're not the most proficient at it, when you lose yourself in the development of the skills, mm-hmm. you're practicing being in flow state.
Yeah. So flow state is so valuable because there's a deeper intelligence in creativity. And when minds are powerful, skills, all of that is important, but it isn't as talented or powerful as this deeper inner knowing and this flow of creativity and the wisdom of creativity that allows these amazing shots or pieces of art to get taken. And you're right, you can practice flow state. It's so funny because that you brought up this painting, because last night I had my first oil painting class, which I'm new to painting and never had painted oil painting before. And our teacher was just like, I want all of you to fill the canvas and I want you to be in flow. And I was like leaving parts because I had it decided, and he's like, don't decide, let the paint decide. Just fill it in.
There you go.
And he's like, this isn't going to a museum later. Like, we can correct it, we can shift this, but allow it to come through. Yeah. And then we'll pause and look back. And there's this thing that happens with all creatives, new or as you develop, where you have this balance between your analytical mind, which does need to know what lens to take. You know, if you were brand new at photography, you could probably trust less that you would get the shot, even in flow, because you wouldn't know what lens to use or what aperture. So how, for people who are wherever they are in the space, how do you balance this, like really developing your skills so you can trust yourself to let go into flow and know that the skill part will be almost automatic?
Yeah, I think it comes down to practice. It's just like kind of like Michael Jordan. I'll use him as an example. I mean, how many hours did that guy spend in the gym? I mean, and in order to be the best at what you do, you have to fail. I mean, it's not, you can't be afraid of failing, first and foremost. That's the biggest thing, is and it goes with me, you know, I'm afraid to fail in certain situations. And when I feel that fear, I'm like, okay, go 10 times as hard then. You have to, there's no right and wrong when it comes to creativity. It's everything's in the eye of the beholder. You know, what you produce might not be appealing to someone else. I'm not here to appeal to anybody. I'm here to have my creativity shine. And so getting to that flow state is a matter of repetition and training your body to feel that flow state, because it's not something that you can really turn on or turn off. Your body has to be used to it. It's like getting on a bike. It's like, oh, I remember this. I think to be able to get there, the emotional awareness and a meditative state is really what you're doing when you're being creative. A lot of people don't look at it that way. A lot of people think meditating is just kind of sitting there and being quiet and closing your eyes. It's so far from what meditation is. Meditation can come through in creativity and in your art. And a lot of times when I reach the flow state, it's a meditative state. It's like I said, this past weekend when the photographs were flying for the sunset, I mean, it was a complete meditative state. I let go of all thoughts. I let go of what's happening tomorrow, what happened yesterday, what bills need to be paid. Like all that stuff goes away. The process of falling into that flow state is easier once you tell your body that this is where you want to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what practices or parts of your life do you do that you think could encourage or enable you to get in flow state?
Sure. I truly believe watching other artists through their processes helps out a lot. Going to museums helps out a lot. Learning about different art and the way that mediums work and the different methods people use to produce art. Because a lot of people look at art and they're like, oh man, they don't know how long certain things took. You look at a painting, or you look, I'm a huge, I love mixed media art, so to speak. I love street art. I love very tactile art. And some of these mixed medium arts, there's 15 to 20 different layers that are put onto a canvas that might have taken that person 2 years to put together. That person had to enter a flow state each time. Part of that is repetition and going back, leaving a project, going back to a project, leaving a project, going back to it, seeing it with new eyes and fresh ideas. I believe flow state can get blocked. It's all a matter of repetition and telling your body, okay, well, this is what it feels like when I've lost myself in a creative hour. Okay, well, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to do everything the way I did leading up to that hour to replicate that. And here you are, and you go in and you do everything the same way, and you sit down and you go to paint, and you're like, well, shoot, there's nothing coming out now. You're like, why isn't the flow state happening? Well, it's not going to happen every time. Mm-hmm. But what you do is you continue to practice. Like, okay, well, let's throw some paint on the canvas and let's just start painting. Then all of a sudden the body starts recognizing, like, oh, wait a minute, I remember a piece of this. Mm-hmm. The more you keep doing that and the more your body recognizes, oh, wait a minute, I remember being in a flow state when we were doing this before. Maybe it's even a brush stroke that you do with your painting. Mm-hmm. Your body remembers. Mm-hmm. Those little memories are essential to the creative mind. You might not think they're anything, but the body knows. It's the same thing when it goes for walking or exercising. It's like those days you don't want to get on the Peloton or you don't want to go on a hike, and you just get on and do it. In the first 5 minutes, you're like, I feel like death warmed over here. Like I feel like crap. And then 5 minutes on, all of a sudden you're lost in your exercise and you're just like completely taking off. And you're like, oh man, that was 45 minutes on the bike. I was just complaining about getting on this thing. Same thing goes with flow state. Mm-hmm. The same exact thing. Your body knows. Your inner being. I mean, it's called everything. Some people call it God. Some people call it your spirit. So whatever the inner thing is that you refer to, that's the driving force behind it all. That's the driving force behind flow state. It's the driving force. It's where your creativity comes from. And if the creativity is coming from there, why wouldn't you want the flow coming from there? And you just have to pay attention to it. And that's, I'll keep going back to the emotional intelligence side of things, because it's like, if you're really paying attention, all of a sudden you open up this massive conduit for creativity. Instead of it being, creativity force fed through this tiny straw, you're opening up a dam. It's like let it flow.
And that's what I think of, kind of encouraging flow. If you literally think of a river, some of these things can help put more water in that river so it flows more. But some of it is removing the trees and the rocks. And I think emotional intelligence can do that. Removing or healing some of these underlying wounds that are self-critical, maybe an internal voice that's critical, and you realize, oh, that's a parent or a friend or someone. It's not my voice, and I'm not going to let that dam up my flow anymore, and I'm going to remove that big rock. And maybe I'm going to remove alcohol or certain types of foods that make it really hard for me to get into flow the next day. Maybe I'm going to exercise because that helps from things getting built up in my river. And all of these things can be these practices that we do. So we're adding to that creativity, but we're also removing the things that get in its way.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I think I touched on it a little bit previously. Is one of the biggest things that has sparked additional creativity is getting out of my own way. That's a very cliche statement, but it's the truth. It's a lot of times when you're searching for that creative spark or that creative outlet, your thought processes are what's damming up the ability for them to come out. And the more simple you are about wanting to pursue something creative, the more it's going to become evident. And it's kind of like I'm working on a paper, I think it's paper tall project where it's multiple layers of medium. And it's a project that I've never done one. My mom used to do them a long time ago. It's an old world art form. I don't know anything about it. I've started it. I wanted to start it 2 years ago. I finally started a year after. I'm barely into it, but I keep thinking about it. And instead of thinking about it, I should just go do it. And what's happening now, I'm realizing like the more you think about it, the more you're just going to put it off. So now anytime I walk by that room and I have a free moment, I go in and I work on it a little bit. And now here it is, like I'm actively looking forward to going into this room and working on this project. Whereas before I was thinking about it and then I would get upset with myself because I didn't go work on it that day. Mm-hmm. Well, why are you getting upset at yourself? You're getting upset at yourself of your own thought. You're really getting down on yourself because of a thought you had about an outlet that you want to pursue. So it's self-defeating. It's like here you are trying to be creative, but the only thing that's stopping you is you. So now when you recognize that, it's easier to get out of your own way because you're like, well, the only thing that's holding me back is myself. And it's like, oh, wow, I don't have to be great at this thing. I don't have to get it done tomorrow. I can maybe let it go for another year, but as long as I'm jumping into it and doing it, then the body starts to recognize, oh, this is something good.
And that's where, to bridge the gap for people, that's why emotional intelligence is so important, because it takes a level of awareness to say, I'm frustrated. That's what's happening. I'm frustrated with myself. Why am I frustrated? Where is this coming from? Do I have any sort of autonomy to change this thought pattern? And okay, I do, and I'm willing to do that. And that is a skill and intelligence that comes, and that's why it's so useful, because then we begin to see the things in our lives that are frustrating as within our realm of control, or understand the parts that are, and then do something about them. And then a lot better things get to happen from there. So you've been photographing some of these same musicians for a long time. You've been photographing Panic for 15 years, photographing Willie Nelson for a decade, maybe longer. How do you stay dynamic, and how does the work stay dynamic?
Yeah, that's a big thing in photography. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's a photograph.
And it's the same guys.
Same people. My biggest thing is with any photography, if my work isn't drawing someone into the photograph, if you're not able to feel like you're living in the photograph, I'm not doing my job. So first and foremost is, no matter who I'm photographing, I want the emotion of the moment to speak to the viewer. And if there's emotion there, it doesn't matter who it is. And I've realized that. As long as I can see some emotion that's coming through and that will translate, I will snap the photo. But I won't waste my time just shooting random photos. If I get a great angle of Willie, oh, awesome angle, great lighting. Well, I've got a million photos of Willie, awesome angle, great lighting. Am I going to waste my time there, or I'm going to look for the emotion? So it might be a little bit different for photographers earlier in their career, because they're just happy to shoot Willie, and they're going to shoot everything they can, which you should. When I first started shooting Willie, it was like, oh my God, this is a legend. I'm going to photograph as much as I can and don't stop. Then you start realizing it's quality over quantity. And then you start realizing, well, I've got all these photos, but none are really speaking to anybody. They're not picking them up. The publicist doesn't want them. Okay, well, that's not in the realm of what they're looking for. These kind of work, okay, well, let's work with what they like, and now let's be creative off of that. So you start to learn, when you work with certain artists, you're like, okay, these are working, this isn't working. I can be creative here because I know that another image was similar to this, but now I'm going to make it, a shallow depth of field and really bring out some more color, or a silhouette of JB from Widespread Panic. People always love that. Now let's try and black out, let's make it a complete silhouette shot. Let's build on that and see if, that draws some more emotion. And then also, I trust my eye. I really, ever since I was a kid, that's the one thing that all my art teachers, my family, everybody's like, Josh, you've got an eye. And I just didn't know how to use it. I was an architect. I was in architecture school. I was graphic design. I was just figuring out a way to use my eye. And now I use the camera as my eye. And the ability to lean on my tools as well. People think you just take a photo with a lens. Every lens is different. Every lens produces, whether it's rounded on the edges, whether it brings the inner part of the image, makes it feel like you're being pulled inward, whether it's a flat, very flat based image. You really need to utilize these tools to generate interest in some of these older musicians, let's say, so to speak. Some of the guys that have been around for a while, you have to make it dynamic. And to do that, you use the tools, and then it's about the eye. I think a lot about, okay, when these fans, when they're sitting on their couch the day after a concert and they're like, okay, I'm gonna pick up my phone and look at some photos from last night. What are they gonna be sitting on that couch and say, oh my God, look at that. And also, I'm a big proponent of, I like to capture at least one or two images from almost every angle in the arena or the venue. So when everybody goes home, that there's at least one image in there that someone's like, oh, I was right in that spot. Oh, I was right there. And that helps a lot with, I love environmental shots and like the whole big picture of everything of a show. I love that. Being able to capture those in a bunch of different areas and have people be like, I was standing right next to you. I need to get this photo. It reminds me of this moment. It was my first Panic show. Like when people come back with emotions like that, that's when capturing the same old artist, it becomes fun because I'm still able to find different ways that speak to the fan base.
It's so cool. And what I keep hearing from you is this balance between, I create my art for me, and when I'm in flow, I'm not thinking a ton about what everyone's going to think. So I can remain in flow and I can keep my voice. And at the same time, I know that the consumers of this are the fans and the people who hired me. And I want to make sure that they get to feel something and they're happy with the product. And this, like, would you describe it as a balance kind of between the two?
Yeah, I look at it this way. I take photos to sell tickets, and I take photos to sell emotions. And that's when I work for my clients, I'm doing the ones that sell emotions for me. I'm doing the ones that sell tickets for them. But I'm putting them both together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the art, I would love to be all black and white and creative. If I could take every photo black and white and send that in as my assets for a show, call me happy. Mm-hmm. But I can't. That doesn't sell the tickets. That doesn't make the bright advertisements. So you balance the both, because if you don't balance the both, you're not going to have many clients. You could just shoot for your art and you can sell your art all day long. That's great. But I want to have clients too. I want to help people build businesses and use the art to help build businesses. And these days, bands are a business, and to be able to take that art and be able to parlay it into that side of things where you're like, oh, well, if someone sees this photo from tonight, it's going to sell 1,000 more tickets for the show tomorrow.
That's so cool.
It's like, oh, we need to sell how many tickets for tomorrow? Okay, I need to make this place look packed. So people are at home saying, getting FOMO, I need to be there. Look how packed that place is. And then, ticket sales go up the next day because they see how packed it was.
Oh, I totally get FOMO. I'm like, God, everyone's at Panic. I gotta go.
Yeah. So that's but that's the prime example. It's like, yeah. And same goes for my clients that work in the destination event industry. It's like when we work down in Mexico, we're on a cruise ship, and it's like, I'm selling next year's trip, and so, but at the same time, I want that picture that is selling the tickets for the person that I was standing next to on that top rail on the boat to reach out to me and be like, that picture spoke to me. I was standing right next to you. I remember that moment. So that balance between the both that's where I live. It's like, I still need to keep my clients happy. I need to generate sales. But I also, I love bringing joy to people. I love when people come up and say, oh my God, that photo. And to me, a lot of these photos, like I took one this weekend that's really pink sky, really wide angle. And to me, it was me turning around, capturing the moment. The moment for me that had all the special meaning was like 20 minutes before it. But for that moment, for other people, it's like bring a tear to their eye. And so where I thought it was the most dynamic, special moment of the weekend, and it's a great photo. I mean, it's a fantastic photo. That same emotion speaks in the other photo that might not have spoke to me. So yeah, I'm doing my art for me, but I'm also making sure that I capture the energy of a moment that might speak to someone else. And so you kind of do it for other people, but I'm a I document time and space.
Yeah.
So there's joy if I can document a specific time for someone else that they don't have to worry about getting their phone out or doing anything. It's like, enjoy the moment. I'm going to capture it for you. If it's happening at a Panic show, I'm going to get it. Yeah.
There's I interview mostly creative entrepreneurs on here. And so there is always this question of like really feeding and maintaining that creativity while also running a business. And I think that marriage of the two is, some people, and I have felt like this in some of my creative businesses before, feel like almost this like, I'm afraid to let it become a business because I'll lose the creativity part. But what I notice in people who have been successful in this, like you have, and this is their living and they've done this for decades, is that they find ways to both have parts that feel like free creative expression and also are great at the business side, because that's what allows you to keep doing the art and to find also meaning in the business of like, yeah, I want you guys to sell more tickets because I want people to see this amazing band because this should exist. And this horse race should exist. Whatever this is, this should exist. And if I can support you in doing that, that's a win. I want these people to stay employed too.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I love the business side of things. I mean, I come from, my dad was very business oriented. He was an entrepreneur. I studied a little bit of business. I've run a couple different businesses. That whole aspect, I've run marketing campaigns for businesses. I mean, their entire year marketing campaigns. So that aspect of the creative side of things is very enjoyable for me because you can be creative in business as well. Specifically in the photography industry, you need to be creative in all aspects. You really have to have your finger on the pulse of a lot of different industries because photography goes across many different industries, so to speak. But the nice thing about it, what I've learned is when I jumped into the business, there wasn't many photographers out there running their photography business, music and entertainment photography business as a business. It was, I'm a photographer, here's my name, hire me to do work. And that's not, in my professional opinion, that's not the way to run a business. I want to bring value to my clients. Value is not my name. Value is not me. Value is what my entire business can bring to the table for you. Yes, I'm a creative person behind the business. I provide a lot of the vision behind our creative, the way we want to portray things creatively. People will lean on me to have my vision shine through in their product or their band. But at the end of the day, Noble Visions is the business. That business is that goal. The goal of the business is to help your business. It's not for me to stroke my ego and be like, oh, look at me, I'm a photographer. I personally would like my business to be Noble Visions. Drop the photography of Josh Timmermans. I mean, honestly, I would. I have to leave it there because the two are associated. But at the end of the day, I like when people hire me for the business to improve their bottom line, to find solutions, to be able to use my art to make their business bigger. And I've built a lot of my relationships on that. Specifically, I'll mention one of my clients, Cloud9 Adventures. They do Jam Cruise. They do Panic in the Playa. They do a lot of destination of music events for...
I've attended many of them. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're a great organization. Mark Brown runs, he's a fantastic individual, but him and our relationship is built on a genuine loyalty, but also an agreement to help each other grow. We met early on and we've developed a relationship where I use my art to help him grow, and we work together as partners to build that brand. And ever since taking that approach with a lot of clients, we have a vested interest in seeing each other succeed. Whereas in normal businesses, people are out to compete against one another. Mm-hmm. I'm not out to compete against anybody. Mm-hmm. If you're a photographer that's out there producing great work, I want to encourage it, because if you get better than what I'm doing, I'm going to learn from you. I'm not here to be better than anybody. Yeah, I want to be better than my own version of myself. I want to achieve that excellence. But, when you work with like Mark Brown and Cloud9 Adventures and you have this partnership in business to grow, you want to work with each other year after year. It's like, okay, this is what we did last year. What are we going to do this year? In the photography industry, when I first started, it wasn't like that. It was like, okay, I'm going to compete for this gig. I'm going to beat out all these other photographers. And then I'm not even going to talk to any of these other photographers. I'm not even going to deal with any of these people. And then this is mine. It's not, you can't be like that. It's like, okay, Cloud9 Adventures is now, we were 2 photographers. Now, the last Jam Cruise, I think we had 10 photographers. And it used to be an all-guy crew. Now we've got guys, girls, when you work together and you're collaborative together in the creative space, things happen. And being part of that, even though you might have to forego some of the pay up front, was I getting paid what thought I was worth when I was first starting out with some of these organizations? No. Am I getting paid now what I think I'm worth? Of course. But there's a growth in understanding that this partner is going to help foster my creativity and foster the growth as me as an artist. Mm-hmm. And I think that's extremely important in the business sense when you're dealing in creativity. Don't sell out. Definitely don't sell out, but also keep your integrity and drop your ego. That ego in business it will ruin you. It will legitimately take a business on a skyrocket up to the top and then throw you straight down as quick as it brought you up the second you let that ego into any of it. And I think that's the biggest thing, is dropping that ego in business. It allows you to excel and allows you to partner with people that you wouldn't even imagine. It's like, I've got Howler Brothers as a partner. I've got Nikon as a partner. I've got Think Tank as a partner. I just signed on with Base Case as a partner. It's having legitimate partners in innovation and technology doesn't happen by having a competitive nature. It's about working together and fostering relationships to allow the business and the creativity to shine.
I'm hearing maintain that growth mindset, stay curious, and be collaborative.
Yeah, 100%.
And prioritize those things and use the tools you need to, including that emotional intelligence, because those things are all emotional intelligence issues. The reason why people don't do that, sometimes it's not their nature, but I would say the majority of times it's because they're afraid of something, or there's difficult emotions that are arising and fears. And when you can manage that, you realize, wow, there's so much on the table for me. There's so much on the table for me.
Yeah, it's the truth. And you also, your perspective gets a lot wider. You start taking, instead of having this narrow vision of everything straight ahead of you, this is where I'm going, and blinders on, and go and compete and achieve and go. And all of a sudden you open it up and you're like, wait a minute, there's an answer over here. We're all beelining that way, and right here is an answer, and right here is an answer. And when it comes to the creative realm, it's it gives me goosebumps to even talk about it. It opens up like a 360 world that you're just I feel gratitude walking through it every day now. It's it's all around you. It's almost like you have to, it's like turning on a TV and turning off a TV. Sometimes I'm it's too much. I got to go back home and I got to get away from the creativity. Things are flowing too much. And it's like,
it's like a wave. It's like a current.
It is.
Current.
It is. It gets to the point where if you have that perspective of opening it all up, it's the world's your oyster. It really is. That statement is as true as, it's as true as it gets. It's a big thing to let go of all the blocks and get out of your own way, because then creativity just starts to shine. You're like, you find it in the most random spots.
And it exists, and there's magic that exists for you, and there's opportunities, and there is fulfillment. And that's the promise that's waiting on the other side of the leap or the pursual, is like, there's more than you can currently see. We are out of time. We have to wrap up. Josh, this was so great. Thank you so much for coming on here. I know we had even more things that we could talk about, and I just appreciate you making time in this very short window that you have in Austin to come and sit and talk to me and share about this path and your really fantastic mindset that I think is a huge part in enabling your success and the artistry that you're able to share with us. Follow Josh. It's Joshua Timmerman. Is it Joshua
Timmermans with an S.
Yes, with an S. Ooh, thanks.
Yes.
With an S. And his work is amazing on Instagram. And I'll link his website, Noble Visions, and any other links you want to share.
Yeah, Noble Visions, you can get to everything. You can get to the socials, all the good stuff. Get in touch with me there. Anything you need.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.